Hello everyone, welcome back to Brian's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. Today we are going to be talking about the disappearance of Joseph L Halpern, as well as two other young men roughly the same age as him, Bruce Gerling and David DeWitt. They all seemingly disappeared in the same exact place, only Joseph disappeared in 1933, the other two young men in 1949. This all took place in an area of Rocky Mountain National Park near Bear Lake Trailhead. If you look at that map, all those green dotted lines represent marked trails as they are today. However, back in 1933 through the next few decades, a lot of these trails weren't marked, and hikers would intentionally go off trail to try and find new trails or blaze new trails. This is the Colorado Bureau of Investigation's file on Joseph. Joseph was on a family trip with his best friend's brother, Sam Garrick, and his parents, Solomon and Fanny. They were from Chicago. They originally went to North Dakota, their final destination being Rocky Mountain National Park, where they were going to do some camping and hiking. More specifically, Bear Lake, which is pictured here. On that day, Joseph drove his 1933 Ford sedan. He parked it there. He and his friend Sam were planning on hiking from Bear Lake to the top of Flattop Mountain. These are just some trail maps of Bear Lake today. This is a picture of Joseph. He was only 22 years old when he went missing. Brown hair, brown eyes. His right eye is crossed. He's got a slight scar above his right eye. He had another scar under his chin. He was last seen wearing a blue shirt with white stripes, or the reverse, light brown pants and heavy-duty brown boots. They reached the summit of Flattop Mountain early in the afternoon of August 15, 1933. After they had got there, Joseph told Sam that he wanted to continue on trying to get to Taylor Peak. This is a picture of Flattop Mountain. This picture coming up is the last known picture of Joseph. Sam told Joseph that he was too tired to continue on, so the two planned to meet back at the Bear Lake Trailhead. This is a picture of the map between Bear Lake Trailhead, Flattop Mountain, and Taylor Peak. It also shows the trails today, but the red dots are the points that I put that he possibly tried to take during the time of 1933. After separating, Sam traveled back towards the same camp that they were staying at. He got there at roughly 6:30 p.m. He waited. 3 hours passed and there was still no sign of Joe. At this point, he became concerned. This is when they first called for a ranger. This is another picture of Bear Lake, just to give you an idea of the terrain. This is another picture of Joseph coming up right here. It wasn't until roughly 10 p.m. that the Rangers actually initiated a search for Joseph. The family members stayed back. They built a big campfire, hoping that this might help Joseph, if he was lost, find his way back to where they were. This is a picture of the actual Estes area that they were staying in at the time and where the ranger stations were. They had to use these 1933 portable electric lamps, which was all they had available at the time. This is a picture of one of them. They knew that Joseph only had a small rucksack on him. He had a motorist's guide to Rocky Mountain National Park. This is an actual picture of that guide. This is the front cover. Here is the picture when you open it. It's a map of Rocky Mountain National Park at the time and the trails at the time that were marked. The family also knew that he only had a few sandwiches with him and a little bit of water. Unfortunately, the next day, massive storms moved into the area, blizzard-type conditions, which hindered the investigation. Many of the search members that came back reported having frostbite. The weather that week got a little better. It included 40-degree nights, rain, and windstorms. These are some news articles that were published during the time of his disappearance. Despite their efforts and continued attempts at finding Joseph. There was no evidence, no footprints, no clothing. They didn't find his rucksack, but the family kept pressure on the search and rescue teams to keep after him. Then, of course, there was the media involvement at the time. Obviously, it's not the same as what we have now, but the media did cover it. These articles are all from the various archives that I have subscription to. This is one of the pictures that I've shown before of Joseph. Unfortunately, after more time went on, people began to lose hope. It was weeks and weeks. Even his family abandoned the search effort because they just figured that something happened to him up there on the mountain, probably succumbed to exposure. But then there were all these odd reports of sightings of him from across the nation, everywhere from Phoenix back to Chicago. They put out a $50 reward, which would be roughly $1,200 in today's money. None of these sightings were actually confirmed, and we actually have one of his relatives, a gentleman by the name of Roland, his nephew, who is really responsible for keeping his case alive, and he has researched this case so much. He also gave a DNA donation so that hopes that if his remains are ever found, they would be able to connect him and figure out what happened to him. This was 90 years ago, so it's safe to assume that he has passed, but his family and relatives still want closure. They want answers to what happened to him. Then in October of 1949, 16 years after Joseph vanished, Colorado students of A&M Bruce Gerling and David DeWint went missing after separating from their hiking group of 9, also in the Flattop Mountain area. The two young hikers were 20 and 21 years old. They were part of Colorado's A&M Hikers Club. They disappeared in the 12,300-foot Flattop Mountain. They had become separated, like I said, from these other students. They were hiking from Grand Lake to Bear Lake. Sadly, because of several circumstances which we'll discuss, their absence was not noticed until the rest of the party returned to college the following morning. According to records, both men were appropriately dressed for the cold weather. They had plenty of food, but unfortunately cold and high winds really tore into that area for the several days after they disappeared. Based on what the others said it just appeared that it was confusion of a meeting of the groups of hikers at Bear Lake, and their absence sadly was not detected. A rescue party was sent into the field the next afternoon. This included 13 men from the Army's 4th Regimental Combat Team at Camp Carson 22A, a mix of student members of Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue Group of Colorado University, and park rangers all took part in this very, very large search. Sadly, again, due to extreme weather conditions that moved into the area, many of the search and rescue team members were in danger of getting lost or getting injured themselves. Several of them came back with frostbite or other injuries that needed medical attention. So unfortunately, it was at that time where the search for these two young men was unfortunately called off. The fact that this search had not even gotten started until roughly 40 hours after the students had gone missing gave everyone even more cause for concern, because not only of the weather, because of the area, what they had available to them at the time, and to this day, none of these three young men have ever been found. None of their clothing, none of their gear, absolutely no clues have ever been found. And to date, these three disappearances are still considered the most mysterious, unsolved disappearances in the history of Rocky Mountain National Park's history. Despite these disappearances happening over 16 years apart, what do you think happened to these three young men? Was it just getting lost, exposure? Did they suffer an injury? The two young men that were together, usually that is something that helps them find their way out, better chance of survival. In Joseph's case, I personally don't believe any of the wild stories of him being seen under aliases in other parts of the country. Like I said, none of those have ever been confirmed. How and why would he be able to pull off this elaborate scheme? How would he have been able to get off the mountain with no transportation? I personally think he became lost or disoriented and probably died from hypothermia, something like that, and is probably still up there somewhere. What about these other two young men that went missing in the same exact area in 1949? Why did none of the other people hiking with him not notice until a day later or 40 hours later? What do you guys think? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've heard of these cases, please let me know if you have any more information. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you all for watching. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music. Hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me to the end. If you have any information regarding any of these cases, or if you've heard of them before, please leave a comment, or you can email me any information that is always in the description, as is all my sources if you want to do further research on this case. If you have any case suggestions for me, please email me. That email is always in the description. Like I said, I will always try and cover any case that is sent to me. I appreciate all of you watching. My thoughts and prayers go out to all the families of these young men that were lost. Hopefully one day soon they will be found and their families will be able to attain closure.